Taz Quill hadn't expected to make galactic history when he'd shown up for work that morning. As a level 4 archivist in the Galactic Records Department, his job primarily consisted of cataloging, sorting, and occasionally misplacing documents nobody would ever read again. Exciting, it was not. Another thrilling day preserving the collective knowledge of 27 sentient species, Taz mumbled to himself, adjusting his regulation grey uniform as he navigated the labyrinthine shelves of the archive's deepest level. Lucky me. Me. The archives were housed in a massive structure that stretched 12 kilometers underground on Centauri Prime, the Galactic Council's administrative hub. Most archives were digital, of course, but the truly sensitive material, the stuff the Council didn't want floating around on networks, that was physical. Chips, drives, and occasionally, for the really ancient stuff, actual paper. Taz's tentacle fingers tapped at his datapad as he double-checked his assignment for the day, Section 117X, Sub-Basement 9, Extinct Species Records. Great. Dead things. Even more boring than living things. Why they couldn't just assign a drone for this is beyond me, he griped. His 3 eyes blinking in sequence, a nervous habit his supervisor had repeatedly told him looked unprofessional. 7 years of Xenoarchive studies for this. The Extinct Species Vault hadn't been accessed in decades. A layer of fine dust covered everything, making Taz's nostril slits twitch. He moved methodically down the rows, scanning labels and updating the digital catalog. And that's when he saw it. A small, nondescript black case labeled simply, Extinct, Do Not Open. Council Directive 7734B. Now, telling someone like Taz not to open something was like telling a Venusian gravity slug not to collapse in on itself. It was against the fundamental nature of things. What makes you so special? He wondered aloud, running a tentacle over the smooth surface. There was no species designation, no catalog number, nothing to indicate what extinct race might be documented inside. Highly irregular for the meticulously organized archives. Curiosity overwhelming caution, Taz pressed his security badge against the lock. Nothing happened. Interesting. He tried his override code, still nothing. Well, now I definitely have to know, he muttered, pulling out his personal scanner, technically against regulations, but useful for bypassing the occasional security measure. He aimed it at the case. The moment the scanner's beam touched the surface, alarms blared throughout the archives. Red lights flashed. A mechanical voice echoed, Quarantine protocol initiated, a containment breach in Section 117X. Taz froze, all 3 eyes widened to their maximum diameter. But that shouldn't have happened. His datapad chimed with an incoming message, Archivist Quill, remain in place. Security forces en route. Possible contamination detected. Taz looked at the case, then at his datapad, then at the nearest exit. In perhaps the first impulsive decision of his otherwise thoroughly boring life, he grabbed the mysterious case and ran. Attention all Council security personnel. We have a Class 3 data breach. Subject is a Trilaxian archivist, approximately 180 centimeters tall, grey-blue skin, designation Taz Quill. Subject is to be considered contaminated and dangerous. Capture alive if possible. Commander Valara Dawn's voice echoed through the spaceport as Taz hunched deeper into his stolen maintenance workers' coveralls. His tentacles nervously twisted around each other beneath the oversized sleeves as he shuffled toward the seedier section of Docking Bay 12. Contaminated? Dangerous? Taz whispered incredulously to himself. I'm an archivist for Void's sake. The most dangerous thing I've done in the past decade was use non-regulation bookmarks. The mysterious case was now stuffed into a ratty backpack, pressed uncomfortably against his dorsal ridge. Whatever was inside had the entire Galactic Council security apparatus scrambling, which meant it was either incredibly valuable or incredibly dangerous. Possibly both. Taz had exactly one friend who might help him in this situation, though friend was perhaps too generous a term. Occasional drinking acquaintance who hadn't yet tried to sell him to organ harvesters might be more accurate. He spotted the ship he was looking for, the questionable decision, a battered smuggling vessel that had somehow avoided impoundment despite violating at least 16 different safety regulations visible from the outside alone. Taz knocked on the cargo hatch in the pre-arranged pattern, 3 quick, 2 slow, 3 quick. The hatch slid open with a concerning metallic screech, revealing a grease-stained human face partially obscured by a wild tangle of red beard. Archivist. What in the 17 hells are you doing at my ship? Is it tax season already? Mick Rustbucket's gravelly voice matched his appearance, rough, weathered, and suggesting a lifetime of poor decisions involving cheap alcohol and expensive women. I need passage. Off-world. Immediately, Taz said, glancing nervously over his shoulder. Mick's eyes narrowed. You're in trouble. It wasn't a question. There are currently 47 security officers looking for me, with more presumably on the way. The smuggler's face split into a wide grin, revealing a haphazard collection of metal-capped teeth. Well, why didn't you say so? Nothing I enjoy more than irritating council authorities. His expression shifted abruptly. That'll be 5,000 credits. Up front, 5,000. That's highway robbery. No, that's the fleeing from authorities surcharge. Highway robbery would be considerably cheaper. A security drone whirred overhead, its scanning beam sweeping the docking bay. Fine. Fine. Taz fumbled with his credit chip, transferring the funds nearly his entire life savings. Mick pocketed the chip with a flourish. Welcome aboard the questionable decision. Paying customer. Please mind the leaking coolant and don't touch anything that glows. Once aboard, Taz collapsed into a stained passenger seat as Mick began the surprisingly quick pre-flight sequence. So what did you do? Steal classified documents. Assassinate a council member. Please tell me you assassinated Councillor Zift. Nobody likes that guy. I found something in the archives. Something that shouldn't exist. Taz pulled out the case. Mick whistled. Council directive number, Berry hush hush. What's inside? The ship shuddered as it lifted off, security alerts blaring in the distance. I don't know yet. I couldn't open it before the alarms. The case suddenly clicked, seals hissing open now that they were beyond the archive's security field. Inside was a single data crystal, glowing with an inner blue light. That's ancient tech, Mick commented, putting the ship on autopilot and coming over for a closer look. Unification-era stuff. Taz carefully connected it to his datapad. Thousands of files streamed onto the screen, all related to a single subject. Earth. Taz read aloud. Is that a planet? Mick's face suddenly paled. Oh hell, you didn't steal just any classified info, archivist. You stole information about the Death Worlders. The ship lurched as it accelerated away from Centauri Prime, just as Commander Dawn's security cruiser emerged from the clouds behind them. Humans, Mick explained, as the questionable decision rattled its way through hyperspace. The most terrifying species the galaxy never properly met. Taz scrolled through file after file, his three eyes rapidly scanning the information. According to this, humans were from a Class 12 death world called Earth. But that's impossible. Nothing evolves sentience on a Class 12. That's what makes them so fascinating, Mick said, propping his boots on the dashboard. And so dangerous. The Council quarantined their entire solar system about 200 years ago. Officially, they went extinct in some sort of self-inflicted catastrophe. The files painted an incredible picture. Humans had evolved on a planet with crushing gravity, lethal levels of oxygen, extreme temperature variations, and persistent high-level radiation from their sun. Their biology was equally improbable endoskeletal predators with redundant organ systems and a bizarre ability to repair massive physical damage given sufficient time. This can't be right, Taz muttered. It says they used to consume neurotoxins voluntarily. Paid for pleasure. Ah, you mean alcohol, Mick said with a nostalgic smile. Good stuff. Burns going down. Makes you temporarily stupid. Feels great. Taz looked at Mick oddly. How would you know about human recreational chemicals? Mick coughed awkwardly. I read about it somewhere. Anyway, keep reading. It gets better. The files continued with increasingly unbelievable claims humans could survive massive acceleration forces that would liquefy most species. So they willingly jumped out of perfectly functional aircraft for fun. They could continue fighting even after sustaining injuries that would immediately kill any reasonable life form. And the Council just hid all evidence they existed, Taz wondered. Oh, according to these files, there was a big debate. Half the Council wanted to nuke the entire planet from orbit. The other half argued humans might be useful as soldiers, obviously. Nobody wants to fight a species that treats traumatic dismemberment as a temporary inconvenience. Taz reached a section marked Prime Directive 7734B, Containment Protocols. They built a quarantine zone around the entire solar system, he whispered, generated false astronomical data to make it look like the system had been destroyed in a supernova. Every reference to Earth or humans was purged from galactic records. Except the copy you're holding, Mick pointed out. But why go to such lengths? Even Deathworlders would be no match for the Council's technology. Mick snorted. You're missing the point. The Council didn't quarantine humans because they were afraid of what humans could do then. They were afraid of what humans would become once they got their hands on advanced technology. A new thought dawned on Taz. If the Council went to such extreme lengths to erase all record of humans, why does a smuggler like you seem to know so much about them? Before Mick could answer, the ship lurched violently out of hyperspace, alarms blaring. Security cruiser. Mick shouted, diving for the controls. How did they track us through hyperspace? He frantically tapped at the ship's scanner, then froze. We've been tagged. There's a tracker on my ship, Commander Dawn, Taz groaned. We need to disappear fast. Mick punched new coordinates into the nav system. I know someone who might help us make sense of your stolen files. And an information broker with connections throughout the galaxy. He said, can we trust them? Absolutely not. But right now, what choice do we have? The questionable decision shuddered as security cruiser weapons fire grazed their shields, and Mick plunged the ship toward a dense asteroid field ahead. Brace for impact. Mick bellowed as the questionable decision screamed toward the asteroid belt, trailing smoke and sparking components. Taz wrapped all 6 tentacles around his seat, his exoskeleton rigid with terror. Your solution to being chased by security forces is to commit suicide by asteroid. No, my solution is to hide where they won't follow, Mick replied, expertly weaving between massive space rocks. Security cruisers are too big and unwieldy for this kind of flying. We'll lose them in here. The ship bucked and shuddered, scraping against smaller asteroids as Mick navigated deeper into the belt. Behind them, the security vessels pulled up, unable to risk the tight maneuvering. See? They're backing off, Mick said triumphantly. Then a particularly large asteroid loomed suddenly in their path. Except for that one, Mick added calmly, right before impact. 10 minutes later, Taz picked himself up from the floor as emergency lights bathed the cabin in an eerie red glow. Well, good news and bad news, Mick announced, checking systems. Bad news, we're not going anywhere for a while. Good news, we're exactly where we need to be. How is crashing good news? Taz demanded. Mick gestured out the view screen. Embedded in a massive asteroid was what appeared to be a sprawling, makeshift settlement, a haphazard collection of ships, modules and structures all cobbled together. Welcome to nowhere, Mick declared. The finest hive of scum and villainy this side of the galactic core, and home to the best information broker in the business. After donning emergency breathing apparatus, they made their way through the surprisingly busy corridors of the asteroid settlement. All manner of species hustled through the cramped passageways. Many Taz recognized, some he didn't, and a few he was certain were supposed to be extinct. Mick led him to a garish establishment called the Broken Equation, its entrance marked by a holographic sign showing mathematical formulas dissolving into chaos. Inside, low lighting barely illuminated dozens of private booths where shady deals were clearly taking place. Mick strode confidently to the back, stopping before a circular door decorated with complex patterns that seemed to shift when not looked at directly. Remember, Mick whispered, don't stare at any of her arms, don't comment on the temperature, and whatever you do, don't try to haggle. She takes it personally. Before Taz could ask what this meant, Mick knocked, and the door spiraled open. The room beyond was sweltering hot and dimly lit by bioluminescent plants. Seated on an elevated platform was a being unlike any Taz had seen before, humanoid in general shape, but with 6 sinuous arms, iridescent scaled skin, and compound eyes that reflected the room's sparse light like facet jewels. Mikekekav rust bucket, she purred, drawing out the consonants. Still flying that death trap you call a ship? Yes. Beware. It gets me where I need to go, Glisser, Mick replied with a casual familiarity that suggested a long history. Usually. And who is your nervousest little friend? All 6 of her arms gestured simultaneously in Taz's direction. This is Taz Quill, an archivist with the Galactic Council. Or former archivist, I should say. He's got something you might find interesting. Glisser Vex's compound eyes seemed to brighten. A council archivist gone rogue? How delightfully unusual. She extended one slender arm. Show me what was worth ending your career over, little one. Reluctantly, Taz handed over his datapad with the Earth files. For several minutes, Glisser scrolled through the information, occasionally making surprised clicking sounds with her mandibles. Finally, she set down the datapad and regarded them with what Taz guessed was the Vexillian equivalent of astonishment. Do you understand what you've found? She asked softly. Information about an extinct species called humans, Taz replied. From a death world. Glisser's laughter was like breaking crystal. Oh, sweet innocent archivist. Humans aren't extinct. They were just misplaced. What? The Council didn't destroy Earth, they hid it. Removed it from star charts, generated false astronomical data, created an entire fiction about a species that destroyed itself. But why? But fear, Glisser said simply. In all my centuries of information gathering, I've never seen the Council so thoroughly erase something out of pure, unadulterated terror. She manipulated a holographic display, bringing up star charts. Your Earth wasn't destroyed. It's here, in what the Council designates as Extinct Species Preservation Zone 42. A quarantined sector of space that Council ships avoid, allegedly to prevent contamination of delicate ecosystems. If humans are so dangerous, why not just eliminate them? Taz asked. They tried. Mick interjected grimly. The files don't mention it, but there was an attempted extermination. It didn't go well for the Council forces, Glisser nodded. The humans were more formidable than expected. The Council decided containment was safer than confrontation. There's more, she continued, leaning forward conspiratorially. For the past 2 centuries, humans have been escaping their quarantine, disguising themselves, integrating into galactic society. Some say they've infiltrated the highest levels of the Council itself. Taz's mind reeled. How would they disguise themselves? Biometric scans would. The door suddenly blasted open. Commander Valara Dawn stood framed in the entrance, flanked by security officers. Archivist Quill. By order of the Galactic Council, you are under arrest for theft of classified materials and potential xenobiological contamination. Glisser hissed, all 6 arms reaching for hidden weapons. You bring Council security to my establishment, Rustbucket. Not intentionally. Mick protested. As security officers pushed into the room, Glisser hit a concealed button. A section of floor beneath Taz and Mick dropped away, sending them tumbling down a hidden chute. Maintenance tunnels. Glisser's voice echoed after them. Level 7, Section C will take you to the docks. I've transmitted coordinates to your ship. Taz had never moved so fast in his life, scrambling after Mick through narrow service corridors as security alerts blared throughout the station. These are the coordinates, Mick announced as the patched-up questionable decision dropped out of hyperspace. Extinct Species Preservation Zone 42. Taz peered through the view screen, but saw nothing remarkable, just empty space dotted with distant stars. There's nothing here, he observed. Exactly, Mick replied with a knowing grin. Too much nothing. This sector should have at least a few rogue planets, asteroids, something. It's unnaturally empty. He manipulated the ship's sensors, running specialized scanning protocols clearly not standard for civilian vessels. The security codes Glisser transmitted are working, he muttered. We're picking up trace energy signatures, massive ones actually. Consistent with high-level cloaking technology. A warning alarm suddenly blared. Multiple vessels approaching. The Council security configuration. How did they find us again? Taz groaned. They didn't, Mick said grimly. These are patrol ships. We've stumbled into a security perimeter. The ship's comm system crackled. Unidentified vessel, you have entered a restricted zone. And power down and prepare to be boarded. New plan, Mick announced, rapidly typing commands. We're using Gliss's security access codes to breach their perimeter instead of running. That's your plan? Go toward the people trying to arrest us? Trust me, Mick winked. I'm good at improvising. The questionable decision accelerated directly toward the security vessels, which seemed momentarily confused by this suicidal approach. Then, just as collision seemed imminent, Mick activated a sequence that broadcast complicated authorization codes. The security ships hesitated just long enough for the questionable decision to slip past their formation. They'll realize those codes are stolen any second, Mick warned, pushing the engines beyond safety parameters. Hold on. The ship shuddered violently as they crossed some invisible threshold, and suddenly, the view screen filled with an impossible sight. Where empty space had been moments before, a blue-green planet now hung majestically, surrounded by orbital stations and spacecraft of unfamiliar design. Earth, Taz whispered in awe, in all its Deathworld glory, Mick confirmed. And by the looks of those defense platforms, very much not extinct. Before they could admire the view further, the ship lurched violently, caught in some kind of tractor beam. We're being pulled in, Mick announced unnecessarily as the control panels went dark, and they've remotely shut down our systems. Council technology can't do that, Taz pointed out. Exactly. Mick's grin was inexplicably wide for someone being forcibly captured. Isn't it exciting? 20 minutes later, they were marched at gunpoint through a pristine white corridor. Their captors wore sleek uniforms, unlike any Galactic Council design, and carried weapons Taz couldn't identify. Most disconcertingly, they all appeared to be the same species bipedal, with flat faces, forward-facing eyes, and bizarre fur patches on their heads in various colors. Humans, Taz realized. They were led into what appeared to be a command center, dominated by a large viewing window overlooking Earth. Standing before it was a tall human with close-cropped silver hair and a stern expression. I'm General Morgan Frost, Earth Defense Force, she announced without preamble. You've breached our security perimeter using stolen Council access codes. Explain yourselves before I have you jettisoned into space. Taz stepped forward nervously. I'm Taz Quill, former Galactic Council archivist. I discovered classified files about Earth and humans. According to official records, your planet and species are extinct. General Frost's expression didn't waver. And why should I care what the Council's propaganda says? Because the Council is hunting him for having that information, Mick interjected. And because he might be useful to your cause, Frost's eyes narrowed. Our cause? And what would you know about that, smuggler? More than most, Mick replied cryptically. The General studied them both for a long moment, then sighed. Bring them to Briefing Room 3. Looks like it's time for some history lessons. The briefing room contained a holographic display currently showing a detailed model of the galaxy. General Frost activated it with a gesture. 200 years ago, humanity was on the verge of interstellar travel when we detected unusual signals from nearby star systems. Before we could investigate properly, the Galactic Council arrived supposedly to welcome us to the galactic community. The hologram showed Council ships approaching Earth. Instead, they assessed our world, classified it as a death world, and view us as dangerously unpredictable evolutionary anomalies. Their solution was simple: extermination, Taz gasped. The Council wouldn't. They did. Frost cut him off. Fortunately, we're very good at surviving extinction-level threats. They fought back. And it turned out the Council's forces weren't prepared for human warfare tactics. They underestimated you, Taz realized, catastrophically. After we destroyed half their fleet, they proposed a compromise. They would leave us alone if we remained quarantined in our solar system. But you didn't, Mick observed. Frost smiled thinly. Of course not. The moment they left, we accelerated our technological development, reversed engineered their ships, and began planning. The Council wanted to pretend we didn't exist? Fine. We'd use that to our advantage. The hologram shifted to show human agents dispersed throughout the galaxy. For 2 centuries we've been infiltrating galactic society, learning, adapting. Preparing for what? Taz asked. To take our rightful place in the galaxy, Frost replied, not as quarantined monsters, but as equals, or, if necessary, as conquerors. You've arrived at an interesting time, Archivist Quill, General Frost said. gesturing toward the holographic display where hundreds of tiny lights now illuminated across the galactic map. Operation Revelation begins in less than 48 hours. What's Operation Revelation? Taz asked, unable to tear his eyes from the display. The end of humanity's exile, Frost replied. For 2 centuries we've positioned our agents throughout Council space. We control key infrastructure, defense networks, and communication systems. When we activate our sleeper agents, the entire Council administrative structure will simply cease to function. You're planning a coup, Taz whispered, horrified. We prefer to call it an aggressive negotiation, Frost corrected with a cold smile. The Council will remain intact just under new management. And where do we fit into this? Mick asked, seeming remarkably unperturbed by the revelation of a galaxy-wide takeover plan. Frost turned to him. You, Mick Rustbucket, or should I say Agent Michaels, have completed your mission admirably, bringing the archivist and the confirmation of our successful information purge directly to us. Taz's eyes widened as he turned to Mick. You're human. Mick or Agent Michaels shrugged apologetically. Cosmetic surgery, voice modulator, and a lot of practice at playing a disreputable smuggler. Sorry about the deception, but when you showed up with those files, I had to bring you in. You've been working for Earth all along, Taz realized, feeling profoundly stupid. For 20 years, Mick confirmed. My mission was monitoring Council information control, making sure our existence remained properly extinct. Frost turned to Taz. As for you, Archivist Quill, you present an interesting opportunity. A non-human who knows our secret, yet chose to investigate rather than report. We could use someone with your archival expertise. For what? When we reveal ourselves to the galaxy, there will be confusion, we fear. We need historians, archivists, and diplomats who can help ease the transition. Someone who can help write the true history of Earth and humanity, not the Council's propaganda. Before Taz could respond, an alarm blared. A human officer rushed in. General. Council security fleet approaching. They've broken through our outer defense perimeter. Impossible. Frost snapped. Our cloaking technology. They're being led by Commander Dawn. She seems to know exactly where to find us. Frost's face hardened. Battle stations. To prepare defensive measures, but no offensive action yet. We're not ready for full revelation. Screens around the room activated, showing a Council security fleet approaching Earth's hidden defenses. How did they find us? Taz wondered aloud. Mick grimaced. Probably tracked my ship. The Council security doesn't give up easily. They... Phil. A communications officer called out. Incoming transmission from the lead vessel. On screen, Frost ordered. Commander Valara Dawn's face appeared on the main display, her expression calm but determined. This is Commander Dawn of Galactic Council Security. I know you can hear me, General Frost. Surrender the archivist and the classified materials immediately. Frost stepped forward. This is restricted space, Commander. By what authority do you invade Earth's sovereign territory? By Council Directive 7734B, which you well know prohibits all contact with quarantine species. The directive you created to erase us from galactic history, Frost countered. Your ships are targeting a sovereign world. Withdraw immediately. I cannot do that. The information the archivist possesses threatens galactic security. You mean it threatens the Council's lies? Frost retorted. During this exchange, Taz noticed something odd about Commander Dawn's facial structure, subtle differences from standard Centaurian physiology. His archivist-trained eye for detail caught what others might miss, her eyes set just a fraction wider, her jawline slightly stronger. She's human, Taz blurted out. The room fell silent. On screen, Dawn's expression flickered momentarily. Half human, she finally admitted. My mother was part of the first infiltration wave. Frost looked genuinely shocked. You're working against your own kind. I'm working for galactic stability, Dawn replied. Your Operation Revelation would cause chaos, possibly interspecies war. The Council isn't perfect, but it maintains peace. Peace built on lies and the suppression of an entire species, Frost countered. Perhaps Dawn acknowledged. But is humanity's revenge worth the potential cost in lives? There are better ways to rejoin galactic society than conquest. Taz stepped forward. She's right. All eyes turned to him. The Council was wrong to hide Earth's existence, Taz continued, surprising himself with his own boldness. But responding with infiltration and takeover only proves they were right to fear humans. Ray Frost's expression darkened. You suggest we continue to accept our exile? No, Taz replied. I suggest a third option. As an archivist, I know the power of information. Instead of conquest, reveal the truth. Let the galaxy know that the Council lied. Use Commander Dawn's position to call for a special assembly. Present yourselves not as conquerors, but as victims of injustice seeking recognition. Mick nodded slowly. The kid's got a point. Military victory is one thing, but public opinion is what truly shapes galactic policy. For several long moments, Frost and Dawn stared at each other across the view screen. Finally, Frost spoke. A special assembly. All species present, a full disclosure of the Council's actions, and humanity's right to join galactic society as equals. I can arrange it, Dawn agreed cautiously, but you must stand down your operatives. Agreed. Provided Council forces withdraw from Earth space immediately. 1 month later, Taz Quill stood nervously beside General Frost and Commander Dawn in the Great Hall of the Galactic Council. Representatives from all 27 recognized sentient species filled the chamber, murmuring in confusion about this unprecedented special session. When the councillors entered, Taz stepped forward to the central podium. From former archivist to the galaxy's most unexpected diplomat, life had certainly become interesting. Distinguished councillors, honored representatives. He began, his voice steady despite his nerves. Today I present evidence of the greatest cover-up in galactic history and introduce you to the species you were told never existed. As Taz spoke and the truth about Earth was revealed, he couldn't help but reflect on how one small act of curiosity had changed everything. Sometimes, it seemed, the most powerful force in the universe wasn't advanced technology or military might, but simply the courage to ask questions and the determination to find answers. The humans had a phrase for it. He'd learned, curiosity killed the cat, but satisfaction brought it back. In this case, curiosity had killed a lie and brought back an entire world,